As I sat at my desk, memories of the past 30 years with my wife flooded my mind, especially our honeymoon. I couldn't help but think back to some of the best moments of my life, particularly those unforgettable days in Florida with Lillian. The more I reflected on that trip, the deeper the sense of nostalgia and gratitude I felt. It was such a magical time, and it's still one of the most cherished memories I carry with me. Right from the start, it felt like we had left all the worries of the world behind, stepping into a peaceful, serene bubble. We wandered hand in hand along Clearwater Beach, with the warm waves gently rolling up to meet our feet. The air was filled with the scent of jasmine, surrounding us with an aura of romance and calm. But it wasn't just the stunning scenery that made that trip so special, it was the experiences we shared. Hiking through thick, lush forests and stumbling upon hidden waterfalls gave us a newfound appreciation for the beauty of nature. Standing there, marveling at the raw power and wonder around us, it felt like we were in perfect harmony with the world. Our little beachside cottage in Key West had the most breathtaking view of the sunsets. Every evening, the sky would turn into a canvas of brilliant colors, and as we held each other close, all we felt was love and devotion. The nights were simply magical, starting with dinners under the stars on the beach, where we savored fresh seafood and local treats. But it was Lillian's gentle smile that made each moment unforgettable. That trip wasn't just a vacation, it was a celebration of our love, filled with memories that have stayed alive in me ever since. I got so lost in my thoughts, reliving those moments, when suddenly, my secretary interrupted me. She smiled, noticing the good mood I was in, and teased, "Did you win the lottery or something?" I chuckled and told her, "No, it's just that my wife has been incredibly sweet lately, and she's been making me feel appreciated in ways I haven't felt in a long time." It almost felt like we were on a second honeymoon, and for the first time in years, I found myself thinking about her constantly. Over the past 2 weeks, I've been calling Lillian several times a day, just to hear her voice, like a love-struck teenager again. And honestly, I didn't mind one bit. I was happy, and I didn't want that feeling to fade. Lillian and I have always had a strong marriage, but after 3 decades, it's easy for things to settle into a routine. Lately though, she's been much more affectionate, craving closeness almost every night, even bringing back some of the little habits we used to have when we were younger. I didn't question this new wave of affection, thinking it was simply a beautiful renewal of our bond. Feeling excited, I left work early, planning to surprise her with something romantic. I bought 2 dozen roses, wrote her a heartfelt note, and picked up her favorite wine along with a box of chocolate-covered strawberries. Tonight, I was going to tell her just how much I loved her and surprise her with the 7-day cruise I had secretly booked for us. Smiling to myself, I pulled into the garage, eager to see her. I walked up the stairs to the kitchen, expecting to find Lillian there, but instead, I saw our daughter Lauren sitting at the table. I gave her a kiss on the forehead and asked, "Hey sweetie, where's your mom?" Just a couple of weeks ago, they had a serious conversation. "Lauren, I'm not sure about this," Lillian had admitted. "I love your dad deeply, and I'm afraid if I go through with this, it'll hurt him." "Mom, Dad loves you, and he'll understand," Lauren had reassured her. "You've said it yourself, you need something different, something more than you've been getting. Dad's not getting any younger, but he'll understand your needs and let you have this one experience." "Lillian, I just don't know how I could look your father in the eye and tell him I'm going out with another man." "I can't do it," she had said firmly. "Then let me handle it," Lauren had offered confidently. "Daniel's expecting you at the restaurant at 7 p.m., and you'll be ready to leave by 6. When Dad gets home, I'll be here to explain everything to him. You'll get that night you've been craving." "Yes, I agreed to the date," Lillian admitted, "but now I'm having second thoughts. It just feels wrong. How can I face your father after making plans with someone else?" "Mom, you could always keep it from him," Lauren suggested. "Over the next 2 weeks, show him how much you love him. Make sure he knows there's nothing to be concerned about, and when I explain everything, he'll see this isn't about love. It's just about having a little fun and meeting someone new. Show him how much he means to you," remind him why you fell in love, and when I talk to him, he'll welcome you back with open arms. Trust me, Dad's always given you what you wanted. This will be no different. You really think so? Lillian asked, still unsure. Maybe you're right. It's just one night, after all. It doesn't mean I'm leaving him, Lillian reflected. A little fun, 30 years into marriage, shouldn't be such a big deal. I'll make sure to show him how much he means to me every night until the date, and when I get back, I'll do everything I can to make him the happiest man on earth. I just need to remind him how loved and appreciated he is, Lillian resolved. He's such a great guy, and this will be an unforgettable experience for you, Lauren reassured her mother. Now, I've got to get home and cook dinner for Adam, Lauren said, gathering her things. Thanks, sweetie. Say hi to Adam for me, Lillian replied. When are you two going to finally give us some grandkids? She teased with a smile. Soon, Mom, soon, Lauren laughed. We've already talked about it, and we're planning to start trying in a few months, she replied before heading out. Lillian sat alone in her art studio, the one William had lovingly built for her in the backyard. She stared at her latest project, but lately, her creativity had felt blocked. The idea of being with another man weighed heavily on her, and the guilt was stifling her artistic flow. But then, she remembered Lauren's words. Suddenly, her brush moved across the canvas with ease, bringing vibrant colors and emotions to life. The sense of peace she felt convinced her she was making the right choice. In her heart, she believed William would understand in the end. As she sat there, lost in her thoughts, she whispered to herself, William might be hurt at first, but I know I can help him see why this is necessary. I truly love him, he's been such a wonderful husband and father. I'll be the best wife to him and show him just how much he means to me. That first night, part of her plan to reignite the spark in their marriage, she slipped into his favorite baby doll nightgown after her shower. She took extra care with her hair and makeup, and when William walked through the door, she greeted him in heels and whisked him off to the bedroom. She surprised him with something they hadn't shared in a long time, and the smile on his face filled her with warmth. Lillian, that was the best homecoming I've had in years. What brought this on? William asked, his eyes sparkling. I just wanted to remind you how much I love you, how special you are to me, she said, smiling at him. Did you enjoy it? I did, he replied, his smile widening. It's been way too long, I'd forgotten how much I missed this, he said, pulling her back onto the bed for more passionate kisses. That night was the most intimate they had been in years, and for a brief moment, Lillian started second-guessing her plans with Daniel. In the weeks that followed, William seemed like a completely new person, happier, more affectionate, and much more involved. It felt like we had rediscovered each other, and for the first time in years, I felt truly content. I even mentioned to Lauren that I was reconsidering my date with Daniel. I don't know, honey. Maybe I don't need this after all. Your dad and I have found that spark again. That's wonderful, Mom, Lauren replied, but maybe hold off on canceling just yet. Give it a couple more weeks. Enjoy the time with Dad, and if things stay good, you can always cancel last minute. I'm sure Daniel would understand. But just remember, this opportunity might not come around again. Okay, maybe you're right, I said, still unsure. Remind me about Daniel. I know he's your friend's father, but tell me more about his situation. Sure, Lauren began. When his wife, Karen, was diagnosed with a brain tumor, Daniel dedicated everything to taking care of her until she passed. After that, he kinda became a recluse, struggling with depression and feeling really isolated. He's had a hard time even considering dating again, but he's just been lost without Karen. As I listened to Lauren talk about his story, something clicked for me. I think I have a solution that could help both of you, Lauren continued. I told him how much you love Dad, but also about how you've been wanting to reignite things in your marriage. We discussed going on a date, not for some long-term romance, but to explore friendship and maybe more, without you needing to leave Dad. When he saw your picture, Mom, his whole face lit up. He smiled and asked me, do I really have a shot at taking her out? And I told him, absolutely. I said, once Mom hears about you and sees your picture, there's no way she'll turn this down. He did ask about Dad, though. He wanted to know if Dad would be okay with it, considering you're his wife. I reassured him, Dad would do anything to make Mom happy. You two need each other right now, and I think you'd make great friends. Let me take care of the rest. Lauren's words stayed with me, and the next day, Daniel gave me a call. We had a pleasant chat, and he asked if I'd like to join him for dinner and spend an evening together. His sweet compliments about my photo made me feel like a schoolgirl again, with butterflies and all. The excitement of something new thrilled me, and we quickly agreed to meet. Although he offered to pick me up, I insisted on meeting him at the restaurant. Over the next few days, our texts became more playful, and the anticipation for the date just kept growing. As the night drew closer, I realized that our conversations with Daniel would have failed any loyalty test. But I was caught up in the excitement, even though thoughts of William never fully left my mind. Still, I poured even more energy into our time together. William couldn't stop smiling, and while I harbored this hidden longing for something more, it was a kind of fulfillment I had never imagined. I cherished Lauren deeply. She had grown into such a remarkable woman, someone I was incredibly proud of. I regretted not spending more time with her while she was growing up, but I always tried to be there when it mattered. So when I saw her, I greeted her with a smile tinged with a bit of embarrassment. Sweetheart, what brings you here? And where's your mom? I asked as I set the roses, wine, and chocolates down on the table. I've got something special planned for her tonight, and I can't wait to see her reaction, I said, grinning as I reached into my jacket pocket. I pulled out the travel itinerary and tickets for a week-long cruise. I'm taking your mom on a 7-day trip aboard the new yacht, Serenity. I can't wait to see the look on her face when she finds out. But you have to keep it quiet, okay? I want this to be a surprise. The word daddy always tugged at my heartstrings, reminding me of when she was just a little girl, curled up in my lap. But something was different this time. I noticed her eyes filling with tears, and she seemed to be struggling to get the words out. Dad, we need to talk, she finally managed, a single tear slipping down her cheek. Seeing the worry in her eyes, I felt a knot form in my stomach. She motioned for me to sit down, and I followed her lead, bracing myself for what I knew couldn't be good news. What's wrong? Is your mom okay? I asked, my pulse quickening. Mom's fine, but there's something you need to hear, Lauren said, her voice shaky. After a long pause, she continued, Dad, you know how much Mom loves you, and she's been telling me how great things have been between you two lately, right? Yeah, and I love her too. That's why I'm doing all of this, I replied, though my stomach was tightening as her tears began to fall freely. I could feel the tension rising, like something terrible was about to crash down on me. I'm so sorry, Daddy, she said softly, the words hitting me like a punch to the gut. But Mom, she went on a date. I sat there, stunned into silence, trying to process what she had just said. The words didn't quite sink in at first, as if they were too unreal to believe. Her tears kept flowing, and my mind struggled to piece together what was happening. I felt a slow burn of anger start to rise within me. Lauren, what are you saying? Where is your mother? I demanded, my voice getting louder. She flinched at the sharpness in my tone, clearly frightened by my reaction. Dad, please, just hear me out, she pleaded. Mom loves you, but she's out with someone else tonight. She didn't want to tell you herself because she didn't want to hurt you. It's just for one night, and she'll be back tomorrow. I blinked, disbelief washing over me. What? This can't be real. Your mother would never do this to me. We've been so happy lately. I just can't believe it. Dad, I know it's hard to hear, Lauren said gently, but after 30 years of marriage, she felt like she needed something different. It's just one night, and she'll love you even more for being understanding. I stared at her, trying to wrap my mind around what she was saying. Lauren, why are you involved in this? This is between your mother and me. You shouldn't be in the middle of this. How did she pull you into it? Dad, you know how close Mom and I are, she said, her voice wavering. We talk about everything. She confided in me that things had slowed down between you two, and she felt neglected. My friend's dad lost his wife a few years ago, and he's been really lonely. I thought they could help each other, so I introduced them. I shot out of my chair so fast that it tipped over. Are you telling me you set your mother up on a date with your friend's father? Is this actually happening? Did you really do this? My voice was booming now, and I could see Lauren cowering under the weight of my anger as I paced the room in disbelief. Answer me, Lauren. My wife, your mother, is out with your friend's dad because of you. How could you do this to me? I'm so sorry, Daddy, I really am, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I know it sounds terrible when you say it like that, but I did it out of love, for both of you, and for him. Love? I spat, the word tasting bitter in my mouth. Love for them? What about me? Don't I mean anything to you? Am I just some fool you can throw aside while you play matchmaker? I glared at her, the disbelief still heavy in my chest. Where is she, Lauren? Where is your mother, and what did you mean when you said she won't be home until tomorrow? Dad, they went to a restaurant, but I don't know which one, Lauren answered, her voice trembling. And yes, they're spending the night together. But it's just this one time, I swear. She'll be back tomorrow, and she only loves you. For the past 2 weeks, all she's been saying is how much she loves you. I stood there, feeling a mixture of disbelief and anger bubbling up inside me. So, all this affection she's been showering me with, was it just to ease her guilt? Well, Lauren, I said, my voice cold, this isn't going to play out the way you or your mother think it will. I can promise you that. Tears streamed down her face as she tried to plead with me. It's not like that, Dad. She never stopped loving you. She's been doing everything she can to show you how much she cares. Can't you give her just this one night? You've had 30 great years together. She loves you more than anything and can't imagine life without you. Please, don't throw it all away. No, Lauren, I replied, my voice like ice. That ended the moment your mother decided to go out with another man. Who is he, anyway? He's my friend Emily's dad, she said, her voice soft. He's a really nice guy, and I honestly think you two would get along if you met. Oh, really? I snapped, sarcasm dripping from my words. You think we'd be great pals, huh? Maybe we can hang out together, and I can offer him your mom on weekends. How about that? Maybe we can be drinking buddies while I watch him date my wife. Lauren sank into her chair, the full weight of her failed plan sinking in. She had never seen me this angry before, and I could see the pain in her eyes as my sarcasm cut deep. After pacing back and forth for what felt like forever, I finally regained some control over my emotions. Listen carefully, Lauren, I said, my voice venomous. I want you to leave. Right now. I need time alone to process what you and your mother have done to me. Don't call, don't write, don't try to reach me. You are no longer my daughter. You're dead to me. Do you understand? I'm not your father anymore. Dad, no. Please don't say that, she begged, her voice breaking as she sobbed into her hands. I love you, and I want to stay here with you tonight. Mom and I planned for me to stay so you wouldn't be alone. Please don't send me away. Leave, Lauren, I said, my voice devoid of any warmth. Your level of disrespect makes me wonder if you ever truly respected me as your father. You're just like your mother, through and through. I've worked hard all these years to give you and her a better life, and this is how you repay me? Get out. I don't have a daughter anymore. Through her tears, she pleaded, Dad, I love you. Please don't say this. Just wait for Mom to explain everything tomorrow. You've had 30 wonderful years together. She might have had one thing, or two, or 1,000, but she'll never have me again, I said bitterly. Forgiveness is out of the question. Everyone involved will pay, including the man who took your mother out. Now leave. Crying uncontrollably, she fled the house, overwhelmed by a pain she had never felt before. She had never expected me to react like this, and as she ran, it dawned on her that she might have made a terrible mistake by helping her mother with this plan. She had hoped I would understand, but my fury left no room for that. Once Lauren was gone, I picked up the phone and called Lillian, but it went straight to voicemail. I left message after message, begging her to come home, but there was no reply. By 2 a.m., I realized she wasn't coming back that night. Exhausted from the emotional roller coaster, I sat there staring blankly at the TV, though I wasn't really watching. My mind wandered back over our 30 years together, the birth of our daughter, the celebrations, the memories that now felt empty and meaningless. How could she do this to me after all we had built together? I glanced out the window at the art studio I had built for Lillian 2 decades ago. That had been her sanctuary, filled with her paintings and sculptures, the symbols of her accomplishments. And suddenly, the anger surged back. With newfound resolve, I jumped off the couch. Over the next few hours, I made countless trips to our bedroom, grabbing all her belongings, her shoes, her dresses, her jewelry, and one by one, I tossed them into the studio. I even gathered all the photo albums, including the ones from our wedding, and stacked them on the growing pile. Then it hit me, her wedding gown, the baby clothes, all those sentimental things stashed in the attic. I hauled them down too, adding them to the heap. By the time I was done, the pile of her belongings had grown enormous. At 5:30 a.m., I grabbed a gas canister from the garage and headed toward the studio. But I stopped myself. I decided to give her until 6 o'clock, just enough time to come home, to explain herself, maybe even to salvage what was left of our marriage. If she didn't return by then, everything would go up in flames. I spent the next half hour transferring funds, canceling our joint accounts, and packing a few bags. If she didn't show up by 6 o'clock, I was leaving. By 6:05, my hope had burned out, just like the trust one had in her. With gasoline in hand, I drenched everything in the studio, pausing briefly as the weight of what I was about to do pressed down on me. Taking a deep breath and with a heavy heart, I struck the match. The flames roared to life in an instant, greedily devouring everything Lillian had cherished. The fire spread fast, its orange glow visible from the street before I even left. As I drove away, sorrow hit me like a tidal wave. Tears streamed down my face as I realized that, just like the studio, my once happy marriage had gone up in flames too. What I hadn't expected was how quickly the fire would jump from the studio to the back porch, igniting it as well. Fortunately, the firefighters arrived just in time to contain the blaze before it reached the house, though the damage was severe. The house itself suffered from heavy smoke damage, rendering it uninhabitable until repairs could be made. Shaken, I checked into a motel nearly 90 miles away, paying cash to avoid leaving a trail in case the authorities came looking for me. My adrenaline kept me wide awake, even after I collapsed onto the bed, turning my phone off. Eventually, sleep overtook me, and I didn't wake up until noon the following day. When I powered my phone back on, it lit up with notifications, dozens of missed calls and texts from Lauren, Lillian, and even the sheriff. Meanwhile, across town, Lillian stepped out of her Uber and met Daniel at the reception desk of the restaurant. Nervous but excited, she noticed the way his eyes lit up when he saw her in that little black dress, the sheer tights, and those high heels. His gaze lingered on her cleavage, accentuated by the hint of a black bra. Earlier that day, Lillian had spent hours at the salon, making sure her hair and makeup were perfect. Tonight, she was determined to make this one-time experience unforgettable. Seeing Daniel's reaction gave her a surge of confidence. She greeted him with a soft kiss, and together they moved to the bar, where he couldn't take his eyes off her legs. Lillian felt a rush of excitement she hadn't felt in years. Without a second thought, she silenced her phone, wanting to fully enjoy the evening without any distractions. The chemistry between them was undeniable. They flirted like old friends, something she hadn't done with William in what seemed like forever. By the time they finished their second drink, the hostess informed them that their table was ready. They moved to their seats, and the conversation flowed effortlessly. Lillian found herself enjoying every moment, savoring the attention and thrill of something new. When Daniel asked if she was still interested in spending the night together, Lillian playfully slipped off her heels and ran her foot up his leg, teasing him. He grinned and said it was time to leave. Hand in hand, they made their way to his pre-booked hotel room. As the elevator climbed to the 14th floor, a flash of reality hit Lillian. For just a second, thoughts of William crossed her mind. But before she could fully process them, Daniel pulled her close, kissing her deeply and passionately, erasing any trace of hesitation she might have felt. That kiss drove all thoughts of her husband out of her mind. Tonight, she belonged to Daniel. Once they were in the room, he didn't waste any time, unzipping her dress and letting it fall to the floor. His touch sent shivers down her spine. Time seemed to blur as the night unfolded, filled with sensuality and tenderness. Lillian found herself completely swept up in the moment, giving in to the experience without hesitation. Later, when Daniel confessed how much he was attracted to her, she felt a brief pang of guilt but quickly pushed it aside. This night was about them, about something different. They made love again, several more times through the night, and once again in the morning. It was the most intense physical connection Lillian had ever experienced, and she felt an odd sense of pride for allowing herself this indulgence. The next morning, with sunlight streaming into the room, Daniel held her close. "Lillian, you're an extraordinary woman," he said softly. "I think I'm falling in love with you. Can we do this again?" Her heart raced as she thought about how to respond. "Daniel," she began carefully, "last night was incredible, and you're a wonderful man. But I'm married. I can't do this again. It was just a one-time thing. Please think about it before you say no," Daniel urged gently. "Your husband doesn't seem to mind, and if you let this continue, I know I can make you happy." "All right, I'll think about it," Lillian replied softly, giving him one final deep kiss. As much as she had enjoyed being with Daniel, her heart still belonged to William, and she hoped somehow he could forgive her for what she'd done. After breakfast, Daniel drove Lillian home. She switched her phone back on for the first time since the night before, and the flood of missed calls and texts overwhelmed her. Seeing William's messages, guilt swept over her. She had hurt him deeply, and now she had to face the consequences. As Daniel pulled into her neighborhood, Lillian's heart dropped when she saw fire trucks and police cars outside the house. The front of the house seemed mostly intact, but a surge of panic seized her. "Mom, where are you?" Lauren's voice came through the phone as soon as Lillian answered. "I'm almost home, sweetie." "What's going on?" Lillian asked, her voice shaking. "There was a fire at the house. We've been trying to reach you all night, but your phone was off. Dad's missing, Mom. No one knows where he is." Panic flooded Lillian's mind. "I'll be home in a minute. I'll call you back." As Daniel pulled up to the house, Lillian saw the firefighters gathered outside. Her heart pounded as she hurried over, a knot tightening in her stomach. "Are you the homeowner?" one of the firefighters asked, as curious neighbors looked on, watching her arrive with Daniel, an unfamiliar man. "Yes, I'm Lillian Harper," she replied, her heart racing. "Well, Mrs. Harper, we managed to save most of the house. Only the back porch suffered damage, but you won't be able to stay here until the smoke damage is cleaned up. Unfortunately, the studio in the back couldn't be saved." Lillian's knees buckled, and Daniel caught her just in time, guiding her to sit on the curb. "Is everything in the studio gone?" Lillian asked, her voice trembling. "I'm afraid so. All that's left are charred remains," the firefighter said gently. "We're still investigating the cause of the fire, but a police detective would like to speak with you." Lillian stood up shakily, making her way toward the back of the house, where she was met by Sergeant Bennett. "Mrs. Harper, do you have any idea what might have caused the fire?" he asked. "No," Lillian replied weakly. "I wasn't home last night." The sergeant turned to Daniel. "Are you her husband?" "No, just a friend," Daniel answered, his face reddening as the sergeant raised an eyebrow. "Do you know where your husband is?" the sergeant asked, pressing further. "I don't," Lillian admitted, her voice small. "I haven't spoken to him." "And where were you last night?" the sergeant asked, his tone growing more serious. "I was with Daniel, at the Hilton downtown," Lillian confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was with Daniel, at the Hilton downtown," she replied softly, her voice tinged with shame. She could feel the sergeant's judgment as she stood there amidst the wreckage of her life. "I had just admitted to spending the night with another man, while my husband was nowhere to be found." The detective had more questions. "Mrs. Harper, are you and your husband separated? Do you have any idea where he might have been last night?" "No, we're happily married," I insisted, though the words felt hollow and absurd after what I'd just confessed. "When you hear from him, please give him my contact information," the detective said, handing me his card. A wave of emotions hit me all at once, anger at the destruction of my studio and all the work I had poured into it, and fear of William's rage, of what this meant for our marriage. I had to find him, to explain everything. I quickly called Lauren. "Lauren, have you heard from your dad?" "No, I haven't spoken to him since last night." "Mom, why didn't you stay with him like we planned?" she asked, her voice shaky. "He kicked me out and disowned me," she revealed, her voice breaking. Her words sent a cold shiver down my spine. William had never done anything like that before. If he really disowned her, things were worse than I had imagined. When I stepped inside the house, the smell of smoke was overwhelming, and the once cozy walls were stained with soot. Our home had become a disaster, uninhabitable until the damage could be repaired. I went to the bedroom to gather some clothes, but as I opened the closet, I froze. Everything, my clothes, shoes, jewelry, was gone. My heart pounded in my chest as I rushed to my nightstand, searching for my wedding rings, but they weren't there. Panic set in. If William had seen the rings missing, he must have assumed the worst. I searched the house frantically, but there was no sign of any of my belongings. Then the horrifying realization hit me: he had destroyed everything. I ran outside to the studio, hoping against hope that something had survived. But as I sifted through the debris, I found nothing but fragments of photo frames and torn pieces of clothes. William had obliterated it all, severing me from his life in one swift, devastating blow. In tears, I called Lauren again, my voice trembling. "He burned everything," I sobbed into the phone. "I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do." "Mom, don't say that," Lauren pleaded. "Dad loves you, I know he does." "He burned everything, Lauren. My clothes, my paintings, the studio, everything's gone. I've hurt him, and I can't blame him. What I did is unforgivable. I should have talked to him instead of going on that date." "Mom, don't blame yourself. You can stay with us until the house is repaired. We'll get you new clothes, and we'll take care of you tonight," Lauren offered, her voice filled with concern. "But all my work, everything I've built over the past 20 years, it's all gone," I lamented, my sobs drawing the attention of a few passing neighbors. Just then, my phone rang. It was William. I could barely breathe as I answered. "William? Is that you?" "Hi, Lillian," his voice was cold. "William, please, where are you? Come home. We need to talk, I begged. No, Lillian. I know everything, from your daughter, yes, your daughter, not mine. You're both dead to me. This may be the last time we speak. No, William, please don't say that. I love you. The studio, it's gone. Did you do this? Lillian, you did this, he replied bitterly. Maybe I didn't physically start the fire, but your betrayal. That's what burned everything to the ground. When I saw those wedding rings left behind and realized you'd given yourself to someone else, you died to me, William said, his voice cold and distant. What you did is unforgivable. William, no, please, I begged. We've had 30 wonderful years together. Can't we talk this through? Can't we fix this? No, Lillian, he replied sharply. You planned to betray me. You gave me 2 weeks of affection to ease your own guilt, and then you cheated, with our daughter's help. There's no way to forgive or accept such betrayal. William, don't do this. I love you, I pleaded, my voice shaking. It's over. Contact my lawyer for anything else. Goodbye, Lillian. William, wait. William. I screamed into the phone, but it was too late. He was already gone. I collapsed onto the ground, feeling as though my entire world had been ripped out from under me. Moments later, Lauren arrived, tears streaming down her face. We embraced tightly, both mourning the loss of everything we had cherished. We couldn't stay in the wreckage of what had once been our home, so we made our way to Lauren's house. When we got there, Lauren told her husband, Eric, the whole story. His reaction was one of shock and horror. Lauren, you arranged for your mother to go on a date with another man. And you knew your dad would be alone. How could you do that to him? He's a good man, and you've destroyed him. I'm shocked, disappointed, and honestly, I don't know what this says about you. Eric's face was filled with disbelief. We need to talk about us now. Having kids. That's on hold. I need to figure out where your values lie, because right now, I don't share them. Lauren was taken aback by the harshness of his response. She hadn't expected Eric to be so angry. But deep down, she knew the real issue wasn't just about their future, it was about the collapse of my marriage, the disappearance of her father, and the pain we were all feeling. Everything was falling apart, all because of one night. 5 days later, William returned to the house to assess the damage. He chose not to file an insurance claim, wanting to avoid further costs. He reached out to his lawyer, making it clear that the house was his and would not be part of any settlement. Lillian would receive half of the savings, but there would be no alimony or support beyond that. When William arrived home, a neighbor who knew Lauren from school saw him and immediately called her. Lauren rushed over to the house, finding him standing in the bedroom, inspecting the damage. She ran to him, tears flowing, and wrapped her arms around him tightly. Daddy, I'm so sorry. Please forgive us. We love you, she sobbed. Lauren, William said coldly, I told you not to speak to me again. I can't forgive either of you. No, Dad. You have to forgive me. I'm your daughter. You love me, she cried, her voice breaking. I don't have a daughter anymore, he said, his words cutting deep. I have a woman who broke my heart. Now leave me alone. Dad, Mom needs you. She's miserable without you. Please come talk to her. She misses you so much, Lauren begged. I'll never speak to her again. Our marriage ended the moment she went on that date and left her wedding rings behind. You and your mother can both contact me through my lawyer. Are you really going to end 30 years of marriage? Lauren asked, her voice trembling. No, William replied, his voice cold as ice. Your mother ended it when she chose another man over me. You both destroyed my happiness, and I won't forgive or forget. Now get out. Lauren left the house in tears, devastated by her father's harsh words. She knew the scars left behind would never fully heal, no matter how much time passed. The next day, Lillian received the divorce papers. Overwhelmed, she finally grasped the reality that her marriage was truly over because of her infidelity. She tried to make amends, sought counseling, and begged William to talk to her, but he refused. He remained silent, shutting her out completely. Even Eric eventually reached out to William, apologizing for Lauren's role in the affair. But the damage was done. Their actions had shattered William beyond repair. Eric, now unsure of Lauren's loyalty and values, began to question whether they should even have children together. They started couples counseling, trying to salvage what was left of their marriage. Meanwhile, Lillian had hoped to return to their restored home, but the divorce decree awarded the house to William. She was granted half of their savings and $1,000 a month in alimony for the next 10 years. However, William had no intention of paying willingly. Lillian, having not worked in 30 years, was forced to find a job. She moved out of Lauren's apartment and into a small one-room flat near the city, taking a job at a modest art gallery just to make ends meet. The comfortable life she had once taken for granted was gone, as was the marriage she had so carelessly thrown away, all for one thrilling night. No amount of tears could wash away the regret and pain from that single affair. The man she had loved for 3 decades, the man with whom she had built a life, was now gone. Lauren spiraled into a deep depression after her parents' divorce, seeking comfort in therapy as she fought to hold her own crumbling marriage together. A few months later, the house was fully restored, and William, following court orders, continued to make the alimony payments. Then, out of the blue, William sold the house. Desperate for reconciliation, Lillian went to see him after hearing about the sale, clinging to a shred of hope for forgiveness. But when she rang the doorbell, it wasn't William who answered. A young couple stood there instead. "Hello, how can we help you?" the woman asked politely. "I'm looking for William Harper." "Is he here?" Lillian asked, her voice unsteady. "Oh, you mean the nice man who sold us the house?" "No, he's not here. He told us he was leaving the country for a fresh start. He was very kind." "Are you Lillian, by any chance?" "Yes, I am," Lillian replied, her voice trembling. "He left an envelope for you," the woman said, handing it to her. "He said to give it to you if you ever came by." "Thank you," Lillian whispered, her heart sinking. "Enjoy your new home." Lillian sat in her car, tears streaming down her face, realizing that she would never see William again. The love she had so recklessly discarded was now truly gone. When she returned to her small apartment, she sat on her bed, her hands shaking as she opened the letter. Inside, William's handwriting filled the page. Lillian. 30 remarkable years. I will forever cherish the beautiful life we shared. You were my first and only love, and I deeply regret that I couldn't be the husband you needed. If I had known you needed more, I would have moved mountains for you. But you chose to walk this path alone, and so our marriage ends the same way, alone. Those 2 wonderful weeks before your betrayal, I truly believed you had rekindled your love for me. They were the happiest weeks of our entire marriage. Learning from Lauren that you used those days to distract me from what was really happening shattered me. That night, I came home eager to surprise you, with 24 roses, your favorite chocolates, and a special bottle of wine. I had planned to surprise you with a week-long yacht cruise to celebrate our love. But discovering that your affection was just a mask for your affair left me utterly humiliated. Congratulations, Lillian. You've destroyed me and our marriage. I can't stay in this city any longer. I've resigned from my job and started a new life in another country. Don't bother looking for me, I have no desire to speak to you or our daughter again. This chapter of my life is closed, and I am beginning a new one without either of you. It will take me years to heal from the pain you inflicted, but I will recover, without you. I hope that night was worth everything we had together. I suspect it was. You and Lauren will have plenty to talk about. Have a happy life, and please forget me, as I already have. Lillian sat there, staring at the letter, her hands trembling. The full weight of her choices crashed down on her, and for the first time, she understood the depth of the devastation she had caused. The man she once loved, the life they had built, was truly gone, leaving her with nothing but regret. Lillian thought she had no more tears to shed, but after reading William's letter, they came flooding back. She cried uncontrollably, curling up on the bed, overwhelmed by regret and sorrow. The excitement and thrill of her night with Daniel were now distant memories, replaced by an unbearable sadness. At 52 and alone, all she could see ahead was a bleak, empty future. One selfish night had cost her everything. Meanwhile, William had taken matters into his own hands. Late one night, before leaving for Costa Rica, he confronted Daniel. Showing up unannounced, William forced his way into Daniel's home. "I'm William Harper, Lillian's husband. You stole her from me," he growled. Daniel tried to explain, but William wasn't interested in excuses. Weeks of anger and pain erupted all at once. Within minutes, William had grabbed a crowbar, leaving Daniel bruised and broken on the floor. As William walked away, he gave a final warning: "Take my advice, messing with a married woman is bad for your health." By the time Daniel made it to the ER and reported the assault, William was already boarding a flight to Costa Rica, far beyond the reach of U.S. law. Without extradition for assault charges, William was free. Daniel spent weeks in the hospital and months in physical therapy, adjusting to his new reality. His reconstructed knees and the 25 stitches across his face were permanent reminders of that night with a married woman. When Lillian and Lauren learned of Daniel's assault, they were devastated. The guilt of knowing they had caused William's anguish only deepened their sorrow. Too late, they realized the far-reaching consequences of their choices. The naive belief that granting Lillian one night would somehow preserve their happy family had instead destroyed everything. For Lauren, the loss of her father's love was unbearable. Her husband, Eric, had nearly ended their marriage over her involvement in the affair. It was only through therapy that she was able to come to terms with what she had done. She vowed to remain faithful, and after 2 years of proving her commitment, Eric finally agreed to start a family. However, William cut off all contact with Lauren. The bond between father and daughter was severed forever, and his heart was closed to her. As for Lillian, her dreams of a happy future with William and their grandchildren were shattered. She was forced to keep working just to survive. Gone were the days of luxury and comfort, replaced by a small apartment and a job at a local art gallery. The love she had once known was now a distant memory, and her days were filled with loneliness and regret. 6 months after that fateful night, William found himself on a beach in Costa Rica, sipping a cold beer outside his new apartment. As he reflected on everything that had happened, he realized something important: divorce is natural. People grow apart, and moving on is acceptable. What's not acceptable is staying in a relationship where you are neither valued nor cherished. He promised himself he would never allow that to be his reality again. And with that, William closed that chapter of his life for good.